Alright, hello everybody and welcome to another round of LSR Group 1 racing here on this fine Saturday before Thanksgiving for everybody in the US as we lost JM. So we'll be sure to get him back in, but we've already got a disconnect, so that's a poor start. So hopefully we do improve from here. I'll immediately go ahead and send the man an additional invite, but again, welcome to round number 5 here in Season 12. Again, hoping for an interesting one here. Of course, 17 drivers on the grid, hopefully 2 more on the way. There is number 18 in Froggy Boggy. Zrosky, that's rude, I'm not that fat. But yeah, again, 17 drivers on the grid. There's JM and Froggy Boggy returning. And hopefully we can get Zrosky in for 19 drivers. For what is a very unique racetrack on the F1 calendar. Yeah, Zrosky, the eating will come on Thursday on Thanksgiving. Then I might be fat enough. But Froggy was able to get in, so hopefully you will be able to as well. But of course, heading to Qatar for round 5 of kind of this first stint of our season 12. I'm going to have a break next week, so this is the end of the first kind of sprint, we'll call it. Of course, no sprint race until the final round. But again, a very interesting one. Not a lot of hard braking zones around this circuit. So really the only place you're going to see overtakes is at turn 1. Again, very high speed, very flowing, a little bit less technical than last week's Suzuka Grand Prix, which of course came down to a last lap pass after a disconnect from X-Mango 12, who unfortunately has had internet issues. So will be unable, as of right now, to make this race. But 16 minutes left for all of these drivers to set laps. Tire wear, going to be a very big factor in this race, but also, again, it's really about utilizing all of the track possible here on this qualifying lap. We'll probably see that here from Zezin Damar in the Alpine, though already invalidating there, attacked that first bit of the track a little bit too much, and he's going to dive in the pit lanes. We will switch to BXT Bernat, our first lap of the session. Zrosky, I am going to go ahead and send you an additional invite as well while we're waiting here for the first lap to get underway, as I have to scroll through the friend list there. But BXT doing everything he can to get those tires lit up. We'll head through this final corner, and we'll get underway with his first lap of the session. And of course, you're going to see this a lot from all of these drivers in the top tier, really attacking that outside curve into turn 1, utilizing all of that track possible, as we do have driver number 19. Really kind of flow outside into 2, really get all the way back to the right, open up that turn 2, and then keep it tight as you head through turn 3, and blast down into turns 4 and 5, double apex right-hander here. The left-hand side tires in this race going to be in a lot of pain over the course of pretty much every lap here in BXT, 30.1 on that first bit. Turn 6, slowest corner on the racetrack, but not really going to drop down into second gear, depending on what ERS mode you're in. Turn 8 then kind of feeds into turn 7, really, again, attacking that curve with those left-hand side tires, really flow quickly through turns 9 and 10, and then 11 here. Got a little bit of a kink of turn 12. Of course, no DRS here as you head into back-to-back-to-back, very high-speed, right-handed corners here. Again, this is where you're going to see the most tire wear. You're also going to see drivers. You can see there, BXT look to go a little bit out beyond those white lines. Track limits at that portion of the racetrack, very, very forgiving. Though at other points, very easy to just go a little bit over and get a track limits penalty, carry the speed through the final corner, power down to the line, get that DRS open before you hit the line, and it's 21.447 for BXT to open up the laps for us, which already is a very good solid lap time, though Anthrax Robin for Red Bull will go slightly faster, 21.3. Got one of the Alpines, I believe that's Muncher coming to the line, 21.6. So not too far off. Got one of the McLarens now, Todd Ryder, though he's just starting a lap. So we'll jump to, I believe it's a Williams. It is Lurka coming through the final corner. I think Lurka definitely the favorite here in the absence of the likes of Mango and B-Tom, who's not in attendance tonight. So 20.6 for Lurka off the jump. Vanzantino behind him very quick as well, 20.7. So two incredibly rapid times to start us off. Got Mudev with a 21.4, very respectable lap time from him. You got one of the Hasses come to the line. That's Crazy Riatudo on an out lap. He'll stick with his teammate of Chenzo. Bit of a wiggle there through the penultimate corner. Usually got a Red Bull looking to head to the line. That's Nemi to the line, 20.762. That'll throw him up to the second row. Chenzo to the line, 21.788, slowest of times on the board so far. Fight Me Now Bot, meanwhile, in the Ferrari will head to the top of the field, 20.565. So Fight Me Now Bot soaring the lead, who I believe was in the lead for a large part of last season's Qatari Grand Prix. I think it came down to strategy that ended up taking him out of win contention. Mac T going to dive into the pits as he makes his way around the final corner. We'll jump to Hog Rider then, in the Chrome McLaren, which of course in the nighttime air here looks very, very dark and black, and Hog Rider will get down into the 20s to 20.984 for the McLaren. That'll slot him into fifth for the moment. So again, rather respectable. Stratting, meanwhile, one of the league owners here, of course, Group 2 full-time driver, along with myself. Of course, I didn't introduce myself as well, if you're new. I'm, of course, am Vacant Haddock, kind of Group 1 manager, main commentator over here. So, of course, thank you for joining. We'll jump to Crazy Riatudo then, as he makes his way around the final corner and will push to the line. That's going to be a 21.8 for him, so it's going to be Haas, slowest of them all to start us off. Stratting, meanwhile, making his way through the final sector, passing the other Haas of Chenzo and Stratting. Going to go over the track limits there. Will retain that lap, but will probably lose a little bit of time there. I'm actually going to check here just to be sure. I am very certain we're on strict track limits here. We are on strict track limits, so it's a little bit odd that he didn't get that. Stratting getting rather aggressive into the pit lane. But he'll hold on to that lap. BNB Indian, meanwhile, I believe is the one of the lone drivers out on a considerable lap at the moment. Purple, though, showing through two sectors. Of course, that purple sector is a little bit misleading around in this F version of the F1 game, which, of course, we learned this past week that we would be retaining with DLC content in place of a Formula 126. So definitely stay tuned as we move into future seasons. VMB Indian will jump up into the top 10. He'll jump up into P7. So again, very solid first effort there from the Sauber driver. Drosky, meanwhile, making his way through Sector 1. Jordan has invalidated his lap, so he will not be putting one on the board, as has Froggy Boggy. So it's two drivers there not going to get laps on the board as JM pushing away. Of course, going to be looking to try and join his Sauber teammate towards the front of the field. But as I was kind of saying earlier, tire wear going to be certainly a big factor in this race. You're going to see drivers, especially considering this in the F1 game, curbs, probably not as deadly as they are in real life around different parts of the circuit. But of course, with this, with Qatar being designed as a MotoGP circuit, you can attack those curves a little bit more than perhaps some of the other designed racetracks on the Formula 1 calendars. JM out of the final corner, he'll blast towards the line, and he'll join his teammate up there on on the fourth row of the grid. So Sauber 7 and 8 as very solid laps to start them off. Zezin Damar making his way through Sector 1. Zrosky across the line would have been a 29.3. A couple of cars making their way back round. Jordan among them. Matt T setting off on a lap. Froggy Boggy at least appears to be pushing for Williams. You got a Mercedes staying out of the way there, as I believe it preps a second lap. Not sure whether that is BXT or Muda. We'll figure out in just a second. Froggy seemingly a little bit on edge through that final corner, but exits okay, and he will go only 12th fastest for the time being. 21.679 for the Williams man. It's always good to see drivers from past seasons returning. Of course, Froggy, certainly one of those drivers. Got a bit of a parking lot going on here at the final corner. Crazy Riatudo giving way to a couple of cars prepping laps. Zezin Damar coming through the final corner. Zroski on a bit of a push lap here. He's showing 57.5 through the first two sectors. Of course, also in that Chrome McLaren, you got the Alpine having to dive out of the way at the last second there. Of course, there is plenty of runoff at this circuit. I believe that may have been Muncher trying to dive out of the way. Aston Martin's 4 and 5, by the way, as I believe that was Vanzantino jumping up to the top. Here comes Zroski to the line, and he'll be good enough to go 12th fastest for the time being. So still puts himself in with an opportunity, but of course still will be looking to improve. Fighting Nowbot on an outlap. Lurka is pushing, so we'll stick with the man who is currently in P2. Nemi, meanwhile, does seem to be up through Sector 1. Expect a good chunk of track evolution here, as well as with drivers continuing to throw a little bit more caution to the wind as this session continues. Lurka, meanwhile, up a 10.5 through two sectors. Nemi was up a good bit through that first sector. Might actually pick up a little bit of a tow from his teammate as well, as the Team Red Bull working together here. And Nemi's up over 2/10 through two sectors. Vanzantino, meanwhile, heads to the top of the field for Aston Martin. Has Lurka been able to carry speed through? He has, so Vanzantino not holding pole for long. He'll lose it almost immediately. Will it be the same thing, though, for Nemi, as he tries to jump up to the top of the field? Of course, got a brilliant little tow from his teammate, but it's not going to be enough. Less than 1/100th of a second separating the Red Bull and the Williams, but it is Lurka on top through that second exchange of laps. But Fight Me Nowbot is flying. He's up over 3/10 through the first sector. Of course, that first sector is really where bravery is going to pick you up the most time. The rest of the circuit, you really have to be careful about track limits and more of the curves. But carrying that speed, very important. Fight Me Nowbot still up 3/10 as we make our way through Sector 2. So Fight Me Nowbot driving like a man possessed at the moment, but he has a big slide there through Sector 2. The tire is just not able to hold on. And so Fight Me Nowbot will lose that lap, but that was a massive, massive effort. Chenzo, meanwhile, jumps up and goes 7th fastest. Again, a number of drivers pushing away. Stratting still yet to get a lap on the board. Zezin prepping a lap. Jordan is certainly up, but is invalidated again. So keep an eye on some of these drivers a bit further down the order to see if they improve. BXT, only 12th. VMV Indian, up slightly through Sector 1. We'll see if he can carry any pace on the backside of the track. Anthrax Robin, up 1/4 of a second through two sectors. Has he been able to pull out anything in the final sector? As the Red Bull heads to the line, he'll jump up to 5th fastest. 1:20.890 for him. Again, picking up a nice little tow from his teammate, certainly assisting in that lap. Stratting now, last of the drivers currently, is going to dive in the pits again. So Stratting certainly not having qualifying go his way so far, as he is the lone driver right now who has failed to put a lap time on the board. We'll see if anybody else can improve. Chenzo making his way back round. Indian has invalidated, so he'll dive into the pits. Zezin also has not yet set a lap. So two drivers yet to put a lap on the board. Crazy Riatuda, though, is underway. We'll jump to Chenzo, who is on a bit of a cooldown lap here. So we will not jump to him. We'll instead stick with Muncher here as he makes his way around. As Fight Me Nowbot will disconnect the cause of that mistake. He was on a hell of a lap there. So we'll see if he can put it back together as we head into the final 4 minutes of this qualifying session. Muncher, meanwhile, up a 10th through two sectors. So looking to jump Zroski here in the early stages. Bit of a wiggle from the Alpine as he makes his way through the second part of that triple right-hander. Of course, got to fling it back left as you're looking to get back going. But again, speed, bravery, a big part of this Qatari circuit. Muncher actually going to dive into the pits, not thinking he's improving enough. So the Alpine will abort that lap. So he will stay in 18th, yet to get a lap on the board. Crazy Riatuda then, seemingly on a bit of a prep lap, and he certainly is. Jordan also on the board, but with a 43.669. So certainly better than nothing in Riatudo. Also going to dive into the pits here. So the lone driver out on track right now is Zroski in the McLaren. Certainly has an opportunity to potentially finish off his lap if he feels very confident in it, as he's up 3/10 already through the first sector. But if he finishes this lap, it will be that will be his final lap of the session. So if this is going to be that final lap, then he better make it count. Making his way through Sector 2 now. Of course, you got that change of direction. You got the right-hander. You got to slow it down to 4th gear then as you look to wrap up Sector 2, as you got a couple of drivers making their way out onto track. Of course, heading to that Sector 2 timing marker. Zroski has lost time. He's down to only a quarter of a second up now. As into Sector 3 we go. Not the best Sector 2 from the McLaren man. Again, big wiggle there as he tries to carry all the speed possible through the penultimate corner, in the final corner now. And he will finish this lap, so this will be it for Zroski. How far up the order can he jump? He'll jump up only to 11th. Found a little bit of time in that final sector, but not much. And so 11th will be where he stays. Of course, you got a couple of drivers coming out right now, potentially giving themselves an opportunity to have an invalidation, get some ERS back, and go again. But really, I think it's only the Ferrari of Fight Me Now bot who leads this train out. And I believe that Williams behind him, maybe, is that Lurka behind him? It is not Lurka behind Fight Me Now bot. That is Froggy Boggy, who will go ahead and lead the cars as they prep their final flying laps here. Of course, Fight Me Now bot tons of room here. He will not have to worry about traffic as we come to the end of this lap. Froggy Boggy, though, giving himself an opportunity to get a final lap in, should that be required. But if I'm not mistaken, Fight Me Now bot will not have that opportunity. It's going to be tight. He'll have to keep pushing, but 120 is going to be... So Fight Me Now bot should come across the line to finish this final push lap as time expires. So we'll stay with the man who had so much pace on that second push lap before his wheel gave up on him in the final sector, which resulted in a big tank slapper, having to gather it up. Ferrari having a stall yesterday in Formula 1 qualifying at Vegas, and has some of that technical issues perhaps carried over here to Fight Me Now bot as he makes his way through Sector 1, only up a 10th this time. So Fight Me Now bot definitely losing some time there in that first sector compared to his first push lap. But he'll push away here through Sector 2. Remember, we saw him at about 3.5 tenths up on that most previous one. He got a bit of a big slide there from Bot, and he's actually going to back off. So Fight Me Now bot's qualifying maybe over here. He's going to try to get some ERS back, but I don't think he's got the time. So Fight Me Now bot may be out of qualifying here. He may not improve. Meanwhile, Lurka up a 10th up, and he's pushing away. Anthrax Robin is going to get a final lap in. So everybody now pushing away. Fight Me Now bot going to have to try to push to the line here. It's going to be close. That's qualifying over. Fight Me Now bot will not improve. You got a V-car going around. Is that Jordan or is that Stratting? That is Stratting pushing to the line now. He'll keep it tight to the line. That's only a 21.4, only good enough for 13th for the Dutchman. BXT Burnett will be the next to the line. Fight Me Now bot will start no better than 4th. Here comes BXT through the final corner as both Mercedes come to the line. BXT, 9th. Where does Mudev go? Mudev goes 8th, pushes his teammate back down the order. Jumping up to the front of the field then. We saw Lurka up through Sector 1. Lurka's invalidated. That's going to open the door for Nemi, who's not going to be able to improve. So has that now opened the door for Vinzantino to potentially steal pole? He's got to find a 10th in this final sector. I believe that's B&B Indian going 6th fastest. Hog Rider has not improved. Here comes Zentino to the line. Can he potentially steal pole? He cannot. And so it looks like it will be Lurka, unless anybody can do anything about it. Zezin Damar, 9th fastest. Anthrax Robin, only up a 10th and a half through the first 2 sectors of the racetrack. Got a couple of drivers on laps as well. I believe that's Jordan jumping up in the order, but he'll only go 12th fastest. Anthrax Robin now out of the final corner. He'll push to the line. JM behind him will be the final car on the lap. Anthrax Robin, 5th fastest. JM will dive into the pit lane. And so at the end of all of that, it is Lurka who, despite the invalidation, manages to hold on for pole position And we'll start at the front, and it's less than half. It's 0.004 of a second separating Lurka and Nemi at the front of the field. So we'll have to see what happens as we move into the race. Of course, just waiting on Munter's car to be pulled back into the pits. As a number of mistakes, drivers trying to find that last gas. But it is going to be Lurka at the front of the field here in Qatar. And again, very tight, within half a second all the way down to P10 there. So within 0.4 there as they tried to get finished. Again, the pack, I assume, going to be very, very tight throughout this race. The whole field spread only 1.3 seconds, which is very, very tight. So going to be very interesting to see how this race ends up playing out. Of course, to any drivers listening, please do not ready up immediately. We'll have to wait and see how some of this continues. But again, definitely be prepared. Don't walk away, but we do have a quick 2-minute break here before getting started here in Qatar with the full-on race. So, as I will, I'm actually going to briefly step away because I do have a yes, Rusky, fuck off. There's the PG-13 stuff. Also, don't ready up immediately because it lets me pull up my strategy cheat sheet that I use personally for racing. Of course, you'll be seeing Group 2 and Group 3 action tomorrow, including some of the drivers that you'll see here. Drosky, Stratting, myself, all involved in Group 2 tomorrow. So it's at 1 p.m. Central, so definitely keep an eye out for that going live. Always some pretty good racing there. But yeah, just go ahead. I'm just going to check because I'm pretty sure one stop is going to be the way to go in this race. Expect medium to hard. 10 to 14 is about that pit stop phase there. Could potentially use softs, but again, tire deg there is very high. If we see any drivers on the soft, it's likely that we'll see a soft, hard, soft, maybe a soft, medium, soft 2-stop. But of course, 29 laps. Again, tire wear incredibly, incredibly high in this one. In terms of fuel, we're probably looking at about 54.3 kilograms of fuel. If anybody wants a quick cheat, then that works too. We'll have to see exactly how this race pans out. Again, I'd expect a lot of drivers to take that medium tire, try and get the best jump off the starting grid as they can, considering it's a very long run, down into turn number 1. And as well, you're going to want that extra grip to potentially hang around the outside, carry that extra speed through what is a very quick turn 1 as we look to get underway here. And we should be getting underway here in the next 30 seconds. The driver at reserve, ready up. Good luck. All right, so about 30 seconds now before we get underway. But again, tire wear, going to be the big question here, as those left-hand tires going to be screaming out in pain very quickly, especially on the medium compound. And there is the countdown drill, so we're about to get underway here. Of course, no formation lap here in Group 1, so we'll get right into the action in these next couple of seconds. And we're lined up now and ready to go. Of course, the Williams of Lurka on pole position. There's 5 lights, and we're underway here in Qatar. Seemingly good jumps from the first part of the grid. Vanzantino with a terrible start. He's going to drop right down the order immediately, and it's Nemi with a great start. He'll take the lead here in Qatar. A little bit of contact further back. Fight Me Now bot, I think, getting tagged by Hog Rider, and he's going to go around. He'll drop all the way down into 9th. Mac T with a decent start. He's jumped up a position as it's 2x2 for from 5th down to 8th as Jordan looks to make a move as they filter through turn number 4. It's the Aston Martin going in the Haas, and Chenzo goes round in front of the field as Chaos here on the opening lap. Fight Me Now bot actually opting for the hard tires. You can see everybody fanning out. A little bit of contact there between the Alpine, and there's a big stack up there. Potentially some front wing damage as Chenzo getting loose as well. as you got a bit of a concertina effect going on. Did any damage to front wings take place as we made our way through turn 6 there? It's going to be an important question here on the opening laps. But we are underway cleanly, and it's Nemi with a great jump to take the lead into turn number 1. BXT, meanwhile, has dropped well down the field. We'll go ahead and throw up, the tire graphic real quick. I'll go ahead and throw lap data up for you as well. There as well as predicted race strategies. But it's a surprising mix of tires across the grid. Surprisingly, seen a number of drivers opt for the hard tire on this first stint, specifically 5th down to 7th, all opting for that hard compound tire. Froggy Boggy, I believe, may have picked up some front wing damage as he dives into the pits here on lap number 1, and he'll retire. So potentially, Froggy Boggy potentially being the victim, or the biggest victim, of that concertina effect. And while One Williams battling for the lead, JM goes round. JM and Chenzo come together down at turn number 2, and JM struggling to get that car back moving. But it looked like Chenzo and JM coming together. Vanzantino's round. And now Vanzantino's struggling to get that car back moving. Drusky and BXT battling side by side. Bit of contact, but as the McLaren is down a front wing end plate. But it's chaos here in the opening laps. Meanwhile, it's a Red Bull 1-3. As I believe Anthrax Robin started well down on the order compared to his teammate. We'll go ahead and throw up position changes briefly. No, he was started in 5th. He just got a really good jump there and has benefited really well from fighting out by not having the greatest starts. Of course, Vanzantino also hauling well down the order. We saw him really just not get underway well. We saw him actually have to pull off the track there. So that's the difference. DRS, though, is activated here as we end lap number 2. Only the one DRS zone on this racetrack, and it's down this pit straight. But Nemi, good exit there, able to hold off Lurka for the time being, as these front 4 already looking to make a bit of a breakaway from Matt T, who's a little bit out of DRS range in that Aston Martin. Then you got the hard compound tire battle, Matt T, Indian Bot. You got Jordan latching on. You got Zez and Damar as well on the hard tire. So Jordan a little bit out of place there, but could be in a good spot to just kind of manage those tires, potentially stick with these hard tire runners as they try to catch and stick with the medium tire runners ahead of them. And then you got Mudev a little bit further back in 10th, trying to hold some cars back. And again, this is kind of the area of the pack where we saw that concertina effect take place. So how much of this, the pack falling back here, is due to damage? Obviously, Zorowski struggling, lacking a front wing end plate. We already witnessed that. It looks like the Mercedes of Mudev is missing that front left wing end plate as Stratton picks up an early time penalty for track limits. The race now potentially starting to hopefully calm down a little bit as we finish lap number 3 here. Should also be a very relatively quick race for 30 laps. Of course, lots of runoff, so the chance of safety cars is a little bit low here as Lucas sets a new fastest lap of the race. Again, see the pack really tight together. You got a Mercedes diving into the pits. That's Mudev struggling with that front wing damage. He'll dive into the pits. Indian, meanwhile, looking to battle with Mac T. He'll try to go around the outside and contact between the Sauber and the Aston Martin. Mac T able to recover, but that'll allow Fight Me Now bot back through. But now Indian with a little bit of clear air. Has a little bit of hargy-bargy going on there between the green machines. But now it's Indian's job to try and chase down the rest of the pack. But further down the order, not a lot of tight battles going on right here. Mudev does get released on a fresh set of hard compound tires. Of course, did get that front wing change. As that front wing, that loss of downforce, going to be very, very massive. Excuse me, here on this circuit, because you're, especially through this final sector here, that front end grip going to be incredibly important, and you're just going to lose so much time by having to get out of the throttle if you don't have that extra pointiness. They're just going to lose too much time, and it just becomes worth it to try and, certainly stay in the race as Zentino and Chenzo swap spots. As Zentino, Chenzo, and JM battling away, fairly comfortably out of the points for all of them. Fight Me Now bot, though, with a new fast lap of the race, as we got a potential look for the lead as Lurka trying to hang it around the outside. Bit of a squeeze there from Nemi, who will hold on. Fight Me Now bot as well, jumping up into 5th. We could kind of see that move percolating in the background. And it is going to be Fight Me Now bot, who heads around the outside of VMB Indian. So Fight Me Now bot, now it's Fight Me Now bot, the leader on the hard compound tire. Actually, I believe Chenzo stayed out there in the early stages, hoping for some sort of a safety car, as Drosky picks up a track limits penalty. Hogrider now hounding the gearbox of Anthrax Robin. Fight Me Now bot, meanwhile, with that clear air, has started to catch very, very rapidly now. On that hard compound tire, look at how much that gap is coming down. It's down to under a second already, and you can see the Ferrari already lurking there in the background. You got Hogrider hounding Anthrax Robin, who I think just trying to stick into a race management mode, but the time there is running out. VMB Indian also being dragged up into this lead fight. We'll see if MacT can potentially close up, and he looks like he will. So all the way back to 9th now, from 1st all the way back to 9th now in a DRS train. Nemi gonna break the toe immediately as he moves all the way to the right. Fight Me Now bot with a new fast lap of the race. Lurka gonna close, striding with another time penalty due to track limits, though, and as they head into turn 1, it's still Nemi in holding on to that advantage, holding on to that clear air. This Qatar certainly difficult to overtake on. You really don't have many opportunities before turn 1, which really allows the leader to just kind of, drive conservatively, not expend loads of ERX, don't do a good bit of battery saving through the early parts of the lap, really try to put the foot down into Sector 3, trying to open up that gap, trying to take advantage of that dirty air. As potentially lifting, coasting it a little bit, using less battery through Sector 1, gives them that opportunity to then drop the hammer and potentially take off. Again, that makes it hard for the cars further back as well, as the pack tightens up. It's going to be harder to, stay in that conservative mindset without putting yourself at risk from the cars behind. As we saw on lap 1, that concertina effect catching multiple cars out. And that's what has led, to some of the pack spread that I think we've seen so far in this race. We're coming to the end now of lap number 6. We'll head through the final corner once again. This time, Lurka going to follow Nemi, going to try to pick up a little bit of slipstream here as the rear wing opens up. We'll go ahead and throw up the telemetry briefly, just to get an idea of battery usage. Got about 50% for Lurka, same with Nemi, so they're about even. Rollins had to use quite a bit more ERS. Hogrider, meanwhile, down to about 30-40%. He made a bit of a mistake there as that gap opens up. Fight Me Now bot, meanwhile, has managed ERS beautifully. He's at 70%, so he could be potentially looking for a move on the McLaren. VMB Indian maybe struggling to keep up a little bit. He's burned a lot of ERS here, down at 30%. Also probably picking up a track limits warning there as JM going to pull into the pits and retire from this race. MacT, Zezin pushing as well. Same with Jordan. So yeah, something important to keep in mind as this race continues is going to be that ERS usage, particularly in the early phases of this race. Not going to be as much of a factor, but certainly as we get into that pit stop phase, which will come in these next couple of laps, specifically for those on the medium compound tire, going to be very important to keep in mind. As I imagine, the undercut going to be incredibly powerful here. Again, just due to how much of a strain this track puts on these compounds of tires. Zezin, meanwhile, picks up his first track limits penalty. Meanwhile, this lead fight has spread out a little bit. Good exit, though, from Lurka, so hold off on that as we head down into turn number 1. Lurka, though, still quite a ways off, and doesn't look like he'll get a move. Zezin, meanwhile, will dive into the pits, and Zezin's going to retire here. So Zezin Damara retires in the pits from P9. He was looking to be on for a decent result, but that's already our 3rd retirement of this race. And so he will leave. So certainly a confusing decision there. But it's really now down to a top 6. Mudev is the next recipient of a time penalty, making his way through the back part of Sector 3. Again, just that little bit understeer. Through that penultimate corner, it's really easy to run wide, pick up track limits warnings lap after lap after lap, especially the closer we get to that medium pit stop base, because these tires are going to wear so much more quickly with those heavier fuel loads. They're going to see a lot of sliding, a lot of wiggling, especially for cars that have been in dirty air, cars potentially pushing to try and make up time. Of course, a yellow flag is for the retired Zezin Damar. We are back to green flag racing. Lurker has continued to try and, continue to chip away at Nemi's advantage. But every time, it's just really half a second as they come out of the final corner here. But again, is that difference going to be enough with DRS? Because battery going to be deployed pretty equally as we come down the pit straight here. Lurka closing quickly, though. He'll dive to the inside. And the Williams brave on the brakes. He will take the lead, but door open for Nemi to potentially sweep around the outside. By the time we get into turn 2, they're going to be side by side. There's going to be contact as well between the Williams and the Red Bull. And they're going to be side by side through turn 3 as we run down into turn 4. And it's going to be Lurka now taking advantage here on lap number 9. And the Williams takes the lead here in Qatar. It remains a Red Bull 2 and 3 as Anthrax Robin look to be threatening should anything happen to the two leaders, but able to keep it clean. And so the battle for the lead will continue here. But will Nemi choose to be aggressive on this first lap? Of course, Lurk has been having to deal with a lot of dirty air, probably had to deploy a lot more ERS than he would like through that first part of the circuit to get that overtake done. So does that now open the door for Nemi and even perhaps his teammate of Robin? Does Lurka have enough resources at his disposal, as we'll jump on board, quite a lot of battery, and surprisingly, the Williams more battery than the Red Bull. So that is big news there for Lurka. I think did a nice job at potentially trying to conserve some of that battery, and has now opened up a gap beautifully, as, I think Nemi really struggling with some of the effects of that dirty air, considering he's been in the lead. He hasn't had to deal with this dirty air through the first now 10 laps of this race, but he's closing very rapidly. It's now going to be Nemi looking to the inside, and he'll take a dive to the inside. They're going to go side by side, and it's going to be Lurka and Nemi making contact again as they head through turns 2 and 3. Looking for a bit of a switchback, though, is the Red Bull. Can he get the better exit as they head around the outside of turn number 4? Lurka able to box him out, having to go a little bit defensive as they run down in turn 4 once again. But Lurka manages to hold on. Reatudo and Zentino into the pits. That's, I believe that's Stratting round. That's Stratting round, and that has brought out a safety car here. So a full safety car here at the perfect time for all of those on medium compound tires as we just entered that pit stop window. And so safety car is out. It's the mistake, I believe, from Stratting down at turn number 1. I think he just looked to pin the throttle a little bit too soon, maybe going a little bit too aggressive. Has now led to a potentially very interesting race. Robin, of course. And I think we got a little bit of gamesmanship. There's a little bit of gamesmanship going on. As Anthrax Robin is attempting to open up a gap to the cars ahead. Lurka, I think, trying to make sure that Robin potentially is disadvantaged here. Of course, everybody going to have to keep to that delta as they make their way back around as the safety car out there on the entry to turn number 3. So that'll allow many drivers back into this race. Here's everybody diving into the pits. There's Lurka, there's Nemi, and they're going to try to get it slowed down, and they will. Nemi trying to get aggressive there into the pits. So is Hog Rider. And surprisingly, the hard tire runners will dive into the pits as well. So everybody will head into pit lane. Of course, Red Bull will be the biggest loser here, as Nemi and Robin having a double stack. It's softs for Indian. It's mediums for Bot. It's mediums for MacT. Robin to hards. Jordan, I believe, is swapping off of the hards. We'll just wait a second here to see what everybody is opting to. Drosky and Stratton, of course, diving into the pits as well. Of course, everybody behind. It's going to be very interesting to see how some of this race continues to pan out. Softs seem to be the... Soft is a very interesting choice at this stage of the race. Because if you're a hard tire runner, you can absolutely make it to the end from this point. But we're really at around a 35% race distance now. So I think, hard's definitely not a poor choice here. Of course, you got a number of drivers being aggressive. Fight Me Now by Indy and MacT. All probably looking to go medium soft, soft, medium to the end. Chenzo going to dive into the pits as well. Of course, nobody will go a lap down here. Of course, a number of drivers with penalty starting with 9 seconds already. He has really struggled. But position changes throughout this race. Hog Rider up 3 spots from his starting position. BMB Indian up 4. Muncher and Ria Tudo having some nice races of their own, up 7 and 8 spots respectively. So battling not only for the remaining points in this race, but also for a potential Driver of the Day honor. So going to be interesting to see how some of that continues. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting decision here as the pack starts to form back up. There's going to be at least one more lap as we await the Haas of Chenzo will be the driver we are going to be waiting on to rejoin the pack. I think another interesting choice. Will anybody choose to take an extra pit stop now? And one of them will. Indian will. Zarowski did start on... Yes, Zarowski, I know you started on hards. That's the interesting decision for a number of these drivers. And Indian will actually take the interesting choice to swap off of the softs. And is that a front wing change? That is not a front wing change. That's a swap to hards for Indian. Mediums would not make it to the end, no. But it's an interesting decision. It was an interesting decision whether he wanted to hold on to track position for the hard starting cars up at the front. So Indian, MacT, Bot, who will start on the hards, but were really in that lead fight. It was an interesting decision for them whether they would take the track position, take the clean air off the start, especially as there's some cold tires. I didn't think so as well. But yeah, it's just an interesting decision whether to stay out, take track positioning, swap to the mediums later, and potentially, be a little bit closer in that regard. Or do you battle with the mediums early, try to get the overtakes done, try to force Lurkin, Nemi, Hog Rider, in this instance, to be at an interesting point where, okay, you can overtake them. It's either, do you want to be on the offensive, or would you rather be on the defensive, is the big question right now as to how the drivers would feel the most comfortable. As no safety car in message this lap, so we may get a late safety car in call. So we'll see what happens here. Again, just waiting on Chenzo to make his way back round to rejoin the pack here. It's going to be an interesting call here. Is also change in this year's game. Pit lane entry is not here before the final corner. It is now on the pit straight. So that safety car decision point is very different, and we will be getting one more lap under safety car in this one. So we'll be getting back underway here on lap number 13. You can see drivers all down the field trying to get those tires into the right operating window. Of course, weaving left and right, especially the drivers on the hards. Tire temps going to be very important to get dialed in before we start. And the tire is certainly going to be cold. Tire warm-up is rather difficult in this year's game. So definitely expect Fight Me Now Bot and MacT to potentially be very, very feisty off the restart, specifically in these first couple laps where the hards, again, going to take a second to get lit up. Even the softs on an outlap, at least in personal experience, if you kind of just drive the softs on a lot of circuits, you're generally okay with getting them into a decent temperature range where you'll get solid performance, and the softs will work out when you're prepping quali laps. That is not the case here at Qatar. Those right-hand side tires, if you just kind of drive the lap normally, will remain pretty cold until you really get underway with that first lap. It's not really until you get through turn 2 that you get a little bit of heat through those tires, and they get into that, at least on the on your HUD, they'll get into that green operating window. So that's really something important to keep in mind here, as that's on low fuel. That's, when you're able to push rather quickly. That's on a fresh set of tires. So all those factors, very, very important here. A safety car is in this lap. So Lurka, now with pack control, you can see the lights out on the Aston Martin safety car. So we are going to be ready to go back racing here. See, Aston Martin leads its way off into the distance. So we'll jump on board with Lurka. We'll be looking backwards towards Nemi. Again, just waiting to see, when does the Williams attempt to take off here? Again, not a very slow final corner. So still potentially the drivers all with a run behind. But Lurka into the final corner now. He'll still leave it very late here. Still weaving, and now he'll take off. And it's a good jump from Lurka to get us back underway and racing. But I mean, Albot, though, with a good jump. You can see him fanning out. You got a bunch of cars in the background fanning out. You got 3 wide behind for P3 briefly. You got Flaming Albot, though, looking to the inside, and he'll get that move done very quickly on track right on those mediums. You can see the tire temps being a bit of an issue. You got a bit of debris flying off. Is that debris from the Aston Martin, or is it from one of your race leaders? I was not able to quite get an idea on it. But Lurka still holds on to the lead after that safety car period, after taking the lead on lap number 9. We are back to racing here on lap number 14. Everybody has survived at least the opening melee. Here comes Fighting Nowbot. Look at the inside here in Sector 2. Again, looking to really utilize those medium compound tires in the early parts of this race. Indian's gone around. Indian's out. Indian and Stratting have come together, and that's going to bring out another safety car. Indian and Stratting collide, and that's Indian into the wall. So another big wreck, and the safety cars beget more safety cars. Stratting once again finds himself in an incident. Of course, with the pack being very tight there, definitely something that can happen. But we'll scan through the field, see if anybody else has damage. JM will leave the session, but he is already disconnected. So now we've reached decision marker number 2. Does any driver look to dive in? Because I think, because I think most of these drivers, I think you only got the one set of hards. So switching to another hard compound set isn't going to be an option. Fireman Albot with a good restart on that first one will stay out. MacT will as well. Zroski also opts to stay out. Nobody boxing for damage among that early contingent. As Stratting, of course, has to dive into the pits for a new front wing. Could hopefully be a shorter safety car this time around. It's certainly interesting as to how that one happened. So 2 quick safety cars as we get back underway here. Mediums can now go all the way. Mediums are very tight on going all the way. You're really looking at... if you box now for mediums, then I think you're in a position where you can potentially end the race. If you hull on your tires very well, if you don't do a lot of weaving under the safety car, you also give yourself a little bit of an opportunity. But really, you're only looking at about a 12-lap usable life, at least to start the race on the mediums. As that wear comes down, you're probably looking at maybe 14 laps. So if you're putting on fresh mediums right now, I would agree with you that the medium runners can go to the end. But with, how much, because there's going to be a good bit of wear coming in just from the slidage from being on cold tires, where if you are on a cold set of mediums, those are going to slide. It's going to take a little bit to get those up to temperature. You're going to lose life through that phase. So I think that's going to be the big question here. The hards can get to the end comfortably without doubt. So that is not a concern over the rest of this race. It's going to be, if you're on the mediums, Zroski, of course, will have to pit again. Stratton is on fresh hard, so that puts himself in a decent situation there. But for Fight Me Naba and MacT, the decision-making process is going to be very, very interesting as to how this race continues. It's also going to be interesting to see, potentially, the incident report there, because we just saw Indian in the wall there. Probably fumbled your Strat. I don't know about fumbled. I think it's, definitely take a gamble there. I think boxing during this safety car window probably was the way to go. So if you're talking about that, then I think probably yes. But another safety car could still happen. And at that point, we're probably having some more pit lane shenanigans, as everybody potentially looks to dive into the pits once again. But should get back underway to start lap number 17. So it's going to be 13 laps of racing left to go, and hopefully 13 laps of green flag racing left to go. So still, lots of time for something to happen. Of course, with minute and a half laps, it's what, 13 plus... Screw it, I'm not doing math. We certainly got at least 20 minutes of racing left. Should we remain green flags, so probably about 20 to 25 minutes to go. I think that battle between Lurka and Nemi is going to be the one to watch. Of course, got Hog Rider there in the background. Anthrax Robin could make a run. BXT's had a fairly good race, considering safety car is in this lap, by the way. Take a look at position changes again. BXT's up 6 spots. Muncher and Reatudo both up 8. So that's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. But now it's decision time once again for Lurka. We saw that he went pretty late just before, I believe it's, the I think it's the safety car 2 line. Out of this final corner, will he choose to do the same thing again? Will he choose to go a little bit earlier? He now has full pack control, and we are ready to go racing. And it looks like he is going to take off a little bit earlier this time as we exit the final corner, but big wiggles from him and from Nemi behind him, but it's good jumps from the pair as they'll blast ERS down to turn 1. Will it be tight? Will it be side by side? You can see if Albot looking to get some heat in those tires. Nemi looking around the outside. The Red Bull trying to hang it in there on the cold tires. It's going to be Nemi who retakes the lead on the safety car restart here on lap number 17 from Lurka. Meanwhile, behind, big bit of chaos there as Matt T jumps up into 4th. Look at that pack, incredibly tight behind. You got Jordan popping out looking to make a move, but he's going to have to think better of it. Got a Mercedes running wide. That's BXT, who will lose position there to Jordan. Everybody somehow making it through that chunk cleanly. Of course, we'll have the exit here. You got Swarovski looking to try and take as much advantage as possible of the remaining life of those softs, as he's got to get some moves done in these early phases. But unable to really get anything going there, and fighting Albot as well. Going to be doing everything he can to get moves done, as he may still be in a situation where he will have to stop again. Lap 17, and the pack stringing out a little bit better this time, as those tires get back up to temperature. DRS, of course, not going to be active down the pit straight this first lap of that we are back under green flag racing. But already it's looking like a quick 3-car breakaway, and it's very tight between Lurka, between Nemi, between Bot, as they'll blast down the pit straight here. DRS will be officially enabled, but will not be active for another lap. So it's all slipstream, it's all pace on lap number 18. And it's fighting Albot trying to hang around the outside, deep in there on the brakes, carries that speed beautifully around the outside, and he swiftly dispatches Lurka's Williams and puts himself up into P2. Great move there from Fight Me Albot from this beautiful helicopter shot. Now, can he continue that pace? Reatudo now, 3 seconds, 4 track limits. And you can see Lurka already dropping back a little bit further from the Ferrari. It's down to half a second. Bit slower, though, through that hairpin. So you can see that gap starting to open up a little bit. But can Fight Me Albot now get that move done? Again, the whole pack of 15 cars tightly strung together here on lap number 18 after what was effectively an extended safety car period. 3 laps under 1 safety car. Benzantino, 3 seconds. We head into Sector 3 now. Of course, DRS will be active, so that'll give Fight Me Albot a huge advantage. But the question is going to be, can he make a breakaway fast enough to potentially knock some of the drivers behind out of DRS? Meanwhile, Lurka has kept up nicely with Fight Me Albot as we'll head into the final corner. DRS, again, going to be active this lap. Again, ignore that yellow flags in Sector 1 up in the top left-hand side of your screens. We're fully green flag here. DRS open for Fight Me Albot. Lurka closing on Bot, though. Bot looking to make a move, closing up very tight to the back of the Red Bull, but unable to get a move. Maybe taking a peek to the inside. All over the gearbox is the Ferrari. Can he potentially make the move? Riatudo is going to drop a couple of spots. He's going to drop down to 12th. Meanwhile, Muncher and Zroski fight over 9th. They're going to be side by side, and Zroski gets squeezed out a bit there. So the move just not quite on. Same thing with Bot. He'll remain in 2nd for the time being. Again, it's going to be a very tall order here for this lead fight. We'll really try to stick with them, see if we can't get the tire wear graphic to pop up. But I think the question here, if you're fighting Minala, is it worth potentially risking a puncture come the end of this race? Because it could be really an all-or-nothing affair at this stage. Which I mean, now, not with the greatest start in this one. Of course, was on for what would have been an incredible pole lap, but had a wheel disconnect. And then was unable to put it together on his final go of things to be able to jump further up the field. So now, is it just full send from here to the finish, try and get that maximum amount of points, try and walk away with this win? Or can Nemi hold on? Can Lurka potentially have anything to say about it? How much will Macti factor in a bit further back, holding up Hogrider and Robin? It'll be very interesting as we hit 10 laps of racing left to go. Drusky, meanwhile, will make his way past Muncher, as will Van Zentino. Of course, Drusky, I think at this point, is trying to hold out in this race, holding out for a safety car. Again, Nemi doing a great job holding Bot back. And it's unclear exactly what the tire wear is going to look like come the end of this race for the Ferrari. Again, those extended safety car periods will help a good bit, but already you can see on the bottom of your screen there, Bot getting a little bit crossed up as we made our way there through the exit of turn number 6. Big, again, one of the important traction zones here, where you can start to notice potentially some of that tire wear start to play into this race, and already you can kind of see some of that being a factor. Look at not only the gap between Nemi and Bot, but the gap between Macti and Lurka opening up rather significantly. That's really showing that those mediums around this 9 to 10 lap mark will start to lose, a lot of pace in comparison to those hard compound tires. That's where you're going to see that pace start to fall off. And so it's going to be a very tall order to take those tires comfortably to the end of this race, much less in a position where you can potentially battle for the win and even not get a puncture. Meanwhile, Hogrider, DRS is open at the back of his car. Macti, though with a lot of straight line speed, Hogrider looking to jump up to make the pass. Macti going to give him the squeeze as the McLaren tries to hang it around the outside, and he's going to get it done by the time they hit the exit of turn number 1 and into turn number 2. Hogrider does a nice job to slide up into 4th. And Macti potentially in trouble here. Van Zentino is round. Van Zentino has potentially contact there on very worn hard compound tires, but that's going to all but knock Van Zentino out of the running. He's got some major front wing damage. So that is the Aston Martin's race all but over. He will retire. That car will get parked on track there, but certainly frustrating there for Zentino, as I believe he was potentially trying to make a move on Zroski when that contact occurred. It's going to be very interesting to see how some of that conversation plays out post-race. It'll be 8 laps left to go next time we cross the line. And the front 3 is starting to make a bit of a breakaway here. If you're Hogrider, you're keeping pace, but it's not super tight. He's trying another 3-second time penalty due to track limits, instead of just not working for him in race trim. What I mean about will tuck in. Can he get a run on Nemi into turn number 1? Closing very rapidly is the Ferrari. We've seen fighting about have a ton of pace into this first corner. And then that was a brilliant move as well on Lurka. Anthrax Robin, meanwhile, makes his way past Matt T. Jordan BXT, meanwhile, battling a little bit further back. And there's fighting about looking to get a move as he gets right up onto that front wing of Nemi. Is the Ferrari trying to get that move done? I think it's going to be an interesting question as well. Is, something important to potentially keep in mind here is, will those mediums have an effective second wind in comparison to the hards? And what I mean by that is, where is the cliff for the hard compound tires where they will start to fall off? Because, there will come a point where those hards will fall off. These are some extended stints. You had to do a lot of weaving, trying to build up some sort of heat before those safety car restarts. How much will that play into account for the wear on Lurka and Nemi's tires? Because Fahmi Nabat didn't necessarily have to do all that much weaving. Of course, those tires are going to degrade faster, and probably significantly faster, given the conditions. But how much will that play into account? So three-horse race for the lead, and likely the win in this one. As we start lap number 23, DRS going to open once again. Lurka, meanwhile, this time, will be the one closing on Fight Me Now. But it's going to be close. Mac T dives into the pits here, so Mac T doesn't think he'll make the end of this race. So he'll dive into the pits. Fight Me Now, but still being very brave, showing tons of confidence in that Ferrari, as he's trying to get these moves done later on the brakes, just way more brave. And that's a hash round, that's a hash in the wall, and we have a safety car. Crazy Riatuno's in the wall, even before we reach turn 1. And I think because I was blocking the pit lane, we've got a third safety car in this race. And now, once again, the race absolutely turned on its head, as Nemi will once again now have to defend. Is everybody going to be super tight together? Zroski is saved. Bot is saved. Mac T effectively is screwed, as he just dove into the pits. So what happened there for Riatuno? Because he went into the wall hard. And yeah, I think it was because that his crash blocked the pit lane there. That's what potentially brought out that safety car. By me now about officially, I believe that's driver of the day. I think that's definitely up there. But still, there's going to be a lot of laps of racing left to go. Of course, everybody can dive into the pits here, but the pack will still remain relatively tight. But yeah, the biggest loser here is going to have to be Mac T. Swapping to the hards as well is absolutely brutal. But I assume everybody can do. Nemi doesn't pit! Nemi stays out! Nemi stays out! And this is a huge decision, because here comes everybody flowing in the pit lane. Jordan's in, BXT's in. Is Muncher going to dive in? Muncher stays out. But Munev, Chenzo, Stratting, all diving into the pits. Crazy Riatuno will as well. But it's Muncher and Nemi opting to stay out. And that could be a decision that could very well lose this race. It's softs for Bot. It's hards for Lurka. But it's massive gambles from the leader and from the man who was P8. So at least there's a slight buffer. But that's the issue of being the leader here. If you pit and nobody else does, you look like a fool. If you don't pit and everybody else does, you look like a fool. And you're the one that has to make that decision. So that's going to be a huge moment over the course of this race. As Nemi has been incredibly strong the entirety of this race. It's really only been the kind of first safety car period, and 2 laps before that where he hasn't led. So he lost the lead on lap 9. We got a safety car on lap 10. We got another safety car on lap 13. Or was it, or maybe it was a little bit later. But now, is it going to be this one decision that potentially takes the Red Bull out of contention for what would otherwise be an incredible point-scoring result? You're definitely at a point now where fresh softs comfortably make it to the end of the race. Again, I'm going to run over and check my strategy cheat sheet here. Just going to log back into my computer because it went to sleep. Unlike, hopefully, you all have during this race. Hopefully it's been rather enjoyable. And while we're in our third safety car period, I'll do this whole YouTuber spiel, as we got an opportunity to do that. So hopefully if you enjoyed this race, you will leave and subscribe. Certainly come back for more at a later point. We have, if you're interested in joining this happening, we have 5 different divisions of racing. We have 4 on the Formula 1 game, Formula 1 25, as well as a Le Mans Ultimate tier. So if any of those sound interesting to you, definitely let us know in the chat, or if you're watching this later in the comments section. We'll definitely be happy to jump in the invite link, get you signed up so that way you can go racing on either of our two Saturday F1 divisions, our Saturday LMU division, or at either of our 2 Sunday divisions. Of course, all divisions kind of based on pace. So we got all of that. But to give you an idea, the Sox at the end have about a 7 or 8 lap, maybe 9 lap window where they are very comfortable in terms of tire wear. Oh, excuse me. So, burping everywhere. But that 7 to 8 lap window will be cheat sheet. You say? Yes, I do have a cheat sheet where I did some research there. I do have that, and I use that personally. So I'm not going to share strategic advantages for my own reasons because I am selfish and I haven't won a race in quite a bit of time here in LSR. So hoping to change that potentially tomorrow. After podiuming last weekend at Suzuka in Route number 2. But should be getting back underway here with 4 laps left to go. And for the first time, it'll be Nemi leading us on a safety car restart. But we saw how much those fresh tires are very different. Safety car is in this lap. Thank you, Carlos. I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, I have a cheat sheet. I have some setup stuff that I pull personally. So yeah, we'll be sure to see where that goes. But 4 laps left here in the Qatari desert under the floodlights. And of course, we'll be seeing real-life racing under the floodlights tonight, potentially tomorrow night, depending where in the world you are, as everybody in F1 will take to the streets of Vegas. I never noticed the Red Bull can on the rear wing. Nemi going to be leaving it late here. Still weaving, leaving it super late, and finally takes off. So Muncher going to be under pressure immediately as we head into turn 1. The Red Bull should be clear, but it's going to be defensive for Muncher. Lurka trying to get some heat into the tire. Muncher goes defensive, takes the inside, but Fight Me Now about dispatches him immediately around the outside, and immediately trying to get a move for the lead into turn number 2. BXT gets a 10-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. That'll be reviewed post-race, I'm sure. But it's Fight Me Now bot. Now all over Nemi. Stratton disconnects. So 3 laps left to go. Here's BXT looking at the outside, trying to take the lead here at turn number 6. Going to try to get that power down on exit, on with the fresh tires. It's the Ferrari down the inside and into turn number 7. And it's going to be Fight Me Now bot who takes the lead here in Qatar with 3 laps left to go. I will try to reinvite Stratton and hopefully not miss too much here. But we should be racing from here to the end of this race, as Stratton, I think Stratton may have had a power failure there. So yeah, maybe Stratton out, Mudev out. Lurka's dropped all the way down to 13th, because I think he got caught up trying to get those tires up to temperature. Starting on the hards, not the decision for him. Zrusky and Chenzo battling away. Nemi, though, still in with an opportunity here, but that opportunity going to fall away rather quickly if he cannot get this move done into turn 1. Muncher having to go defensive. There's BXT looking down the inside of the final corner. And here comes the parade behind the Alpine. DRS enabled, but not for another lap. Fight Me Now that is pulled away comfortably from Nemi as we now hit officially 3 laps to go. BXT down the inside. He'll move up a spot. You got Anthrax Robin looking up the inside. Bit of a lockup there and a bit of a push there, but that'll push Muncher through. Or that'll push Muncher out of the way as Robin up into 4th. It's the Alpine. Loads of understeer there, trying to keep it together. 3 wide briefly there through turn number 2. Jordan with contact. That's an Aston losing a front wing. That's Mac T, who goes from bad to worse now. Modev's going to retire in the pits, so that's another car out. Mac T's going to have to limp it back to the line. Muncher, of course, being a cork in the bottle through this middle sector. Hog Rider and Zrusky now all over the back. Hog Rider looking the inside. As Muncher has to go defensive. Hog Rider looking down the inside, there through turn number 7. It's side by side, and now it's going to be Muncher almost certainly having to yield. Going to try to be brave there on the brakes, but going to have to get out of it just a little bit late. That's Hog Rider now. Up into 4th. Nemi, though, having to defend now from BXT and Robin. Mac T out of the session as he's in the gravel. So that's another DNF. As cars all over the shop here. Everybody just trying to get as good of a result as possible. Remember, penalties still going to play a massive factor here on this final lap. As we'll see if Nemi can hold it off. Fight Me Now bot picks up the fastest lap of the race, as he's now 2.5 seconds clear in that Ferrari. Incredibly comfortable there at the front. You got Zrusky trying to go around the outside of Muncher at turn 1. You got BXT going around the outside of Nemi at turn 1. Both moves are successful. Additionally, Chenzo finds his way past Muncher. Rhea 2, though, dies in the pits. That's going to be his race over. As Jordan's out. Jordan's retired. Jordan's out of the race. So we're down to 10 cars remaining. What is going on at the end of this race? 9 DNFs. As chaos unfolds in the final couple of laps, Muncher's dropped all the way to 8th now. Nemi's still holding on to 3rd, trying to keep touch with BXT, trying to potentially hold on to a 3rd on track. BXT, of course, has a time penalty that will be reviewed. As taking a look at the penalties, it's only 10 seconds for BXT is that penalty, so it's going to be between Nemi and BXT here. Is going to be a big difference. We'll keep that penalty marker up on screen. We'll just keep in mind that the Red Bull is on the hard compound tire as we come to the end of this race. But through the final corner, for the final time, and Nemi with a bit of a comfortable edge over Robin behind. Hog Rider potentially going to have a run. Here comes Chenzo and Zroski potentially going at it. But yeah, I mean, it's just been chaos here in the final laps. Of course, seeing multiple safety cars all playing a big factor in this one. Tons of DNFs, tons of contact, tons of damage. Carbon fiber going to, of course, be littering the racetrack. And meanwhile, has closed up a little bit to BXT. We'll see if he can. Very chaotic but entertaining racing. Of course, thank you for great commentary. Of course, we'll see if anything changes as Hog Rider putting Robin under pressure. So we could see a run of the line for what eventually, for what would be P4. As Hog Rider and Chenzo really the only drivers in there with a chance. But making our way through the final sector for the final time. 2 corners left to go. Not the greatest start, but we saw how much pace Fabian Albot in the Ferrari had during this qualifying session. Was able to get it done there. Didn't have the greatest start, but just closed it back bit by bit. Certainly took advantage of the safety cars, but it'll be Fight Me Now Bot winning here in Qatar. It's going to be BXT provisionally coming across the line in 2nd place. It'll then be Nemi in 3rd, Hog Rider in 4th, followed by Chenzo. It'll then be Anthrax, Robin, Muncher, Lurka, and of course I'll give you the rest of the order once it does pop up. But a very, very chaotic affair here in the desert. And it's going to be interesting to definitely be tuned in for some of the post-race conversations. But it's a Brit for Ferrari on the top step. Of course, when the other one will be starting at the back of the grid tonight. But driver of the day will go to Muncher, surprisingly. But race winner, fast lap for Fight Me Now Bot. As he wins. But yeah, Fight Me Now Bot, it then is provisionally, I'll call BXC in P2, as I assume that 10-second time penalty would get removed. And it's Nemi 3rd, Hog Rider 4th, Chenzo, Robin, Muncher, Lurka, Zroski, and Stratton will receive your points in this one. I'll just go ahead and pull all the results for me later. But certainly, again, a very chaotic one, but hopefully you all did enjoy that. Again, definitely be sure to tune in tomorrow. We got Group 2 action at 2 p.m. Eastern and Group 3 at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So definitely be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, tune in for those races. It should be very interesting affairs there too. Again, hopefully you did enjoy this one. Of course, I've been Vacant Haddock. Thank you for joining me. We will be off next weekend as we will not have personnel available during the Thanksgiving weekend for all of the Americans who will be out of town. So we'll have a 1-week break, and we'll return with full qualifying at Singapore in 2 weeks' time. So that's the next time you can expect Group 1 action to be taking place. We'll be under the floodlights, again, staying in Asia, staying with the night race, but going on a much tighter circuit. I'm going to be a significantly tall task for these drivers to conquer. So definitely be sure to tune in for that. Hopefully you've enjoyed, and until next time, I will see you later. Have a good one.